Hey guys, this is a basic tutorial on ambient occlusion baking and how to deal with overlapping faces. Since if you have overlapping faces and you try to make an ambient occlusion map with them, it will create errors from two faces trying to put shadows on the same pixel area, and it just gets into conflict and it just messes up big time. So here's a basic RH202 gun which originally was made by SatNav, but I have modified quite a bit and added a lot of detail. So then this was what we're going to use as our example. The first thing is you need it UV mapped, which this is. We just turn on the checker map, you can see UVs. And I've got everything in separate pieces here because it's just easier for the later exporting if I keep them separate. But what you can do to make things easy is you can join them all together as one object, or you can use a multi unwrap script like this one here, which if I use it on this, it will combine all the objects and you can see the UV map here, which is, yeah. Let me just learn these guns quickly. Yep, so if we look at this UV map again, just so uh, we, you'll see we have a lot of overlapping faces. I mean, for starters, we've got these two meshes, which is both this mesh here and this mesh back here. So you can see, and it's just overlap like this, just so when this cylinder here is removed on the LODs, that it's on the face behind it, so it won't be missed. And it's actually slightly smaller UV than the face behind it, so there is a little bit of a gap still, even though it's overlapped. But they are separate message. They're not welded because they're separate messages, as this one's part of the foundation area here, and this one rotates with the barrel base when it goes up and down. If we get out of this, and then if you see, that rotates there because it's got the ammo belt guides on it, which you can see here, just keeps it in place. And if we look, there's a lot more like that. Like the two ammo belts are the same UV, both barrels are the same UV, and so on. If we actually have a look at the UVs, bring that over here, you will see all the UVs here. All the ones in red are basically overlaps. So as you can see, about a third of the mesh, or a third of the UV, should I say, are overlapped. Where the normal view, you can see. The first thing before you can do a proper AO bake is to really remove all overlapping faces so there is no conflict. So I'm going to do piece by piece here. So first thing you want to do is generate a basic UV map. I use Textporter because I'm still using 3DsMax 9 here because that's all our tools work with for BF2. So let's do 1024 by 1024 and take off backfix cull. We'll keep overlaps on, we'll turn off edges, and we'll keep it on face normal. And then let's just do the legs, and that's how they look. So you can see, and if we just save that as RH202 face UV face RH202 legs face UVs, save that. Save it without an alpha channel for now because it's easier to view, but in your final ones I would recommend saving with the alpha channel so you got the transparency of areas. So it wouldn't be all black basically, this black area would be transparent, so be that. So now if we unwrap this, let's hide everything else, and then pick texture, go to your UV map, view it, you'll see everything in red is overlapped, which basically is all three legs have overlap faces. No, sorry. So all of this basically. Now, the simple way here is just to pick one leg. These two are the most common if we unhide everything again. Those two most common shadow legs. So let's just keep the one on the left here. So remove this from the selection and then collapse this. And then what we want to do, copy its name, detach these selected faces as the name of the thing and then call it overlaps. In fact, before you do this, cancel this, back everything up. So you can either save it as an alternative file or you can clone all the meshes. Take these bones out of the selection and just hide unselected so you're working with the clones. Don't clone them as an instance, clone them as a copy, by the way. Because if you clone them as an instant, then any changes you do on these will be affected by the others. Will affect the others, sorry. So let's work on the copies for this. So hide unselected, so we're working with the O1 ones. And then if you use an rename, you can rename them to bake. You can use a renaming tool for this, but since I don't want to can't be asked to reference one, I'm just going to rename them manually. So, yeah, going back to this, select those message, copy the name, detach, paste name, and put overlaps on the end. This will just indicate that these extra bits are just there for casting a shadow onto the main mesh. And they're not actually there for you having a shadow cast onto them. They're only for casting a shadow onto the bit we're baking onto. The alternative to removing these meshes is that you unwrap the UVs to a tiny little corner in it, but which does preserve face smoothing if they do affect them, which in this case it doesn't. But it does increase render time very slightly, but marginal. This is the way I normally do it, but I'll probably show you both ways later. So that's the legs done, because if we do another UV on this and we keep mark overlaps in, you'll see that now we have no red faces in there. If we in fact turn off polygon fill, actually we put polygon fill as black, and then we only have, you'll see it's all black. All those faces are black, and there's no red spots. So, if we hide this and go on to the next one, which is the turret, which is here. This has a lot of faces, so if we look at just the overlaps in it, you'll see there's a lot. If we put it back onto face normals, that's the whole UV there. Now, there is a really quick way of doing this. So basically, a faster way of selecting the overlaps is to change the overlap color to pure white, set the normal face color to constant black. Now if we pick this mesh and do a UV, all the overlaps are now in pure white. So if we rename this one as, if we save, sorry, this UV map into here with just the white faces, save it without the alpha channel checked, and now what we can do is we can add a volume select modifier. Want to go faces, replace current selection, go for crossing, and then you want to select texture map. Now we're going to select bitmap, and we're going to select that UV we just done. And basically what this volume select does is it selects everything in white, and doesn't select anything in black. So now you can see it's selected all of our overlaps here. So it's not the best view, but if we now add an edit poly modifier on it, go to face selection, you'll see all of these are now overlaps. For some reason it hasn't selected these faces. It's a bit odd. One thing you can do, in fact, is open Photoshop, because it hasn't selected everything because the area isn't really big enough. Open this. Yeah, let's get rid of that. And then we select the red, green, blue channels, and then just go select, modify, expand by 2 pixels or so, and then just fill that all in white. Save. That'll just pad the area, make it easier for the selection. Then if we delete this edit poly thing, it's doing it again, just make sure it's loading it. Make sure you save it, of course. Edit poly. You'll see the selection is far better now. It's not missing these faces. This whole ammo box here is selected. And yeah, that's basically what we want. Now, for this model, pretty much everything from the left side is mirrored to the right and vice versa. So, if we go into normal viewpoint and just remove everything on one side, so we'll actually keep the left side here and just remove everything in there. For some reason it hasn't deselected them. There we go. And then detach these, copy the name, and attach as overlaps. And we can collapse that. Now, if we do another of the same as we just did, you'll see pretty much everything is gone from before. But actually, one step I forgot to take before which I should have done. If we do a multi-UV wrap on these, basically combining them for a minute, and then we do a proper uncheck overlaps, put face normals, and we do a proper UV on this. This UV here we'll use later to check that all the faces are still in the UV map and we haven't missed any out, because it's very easy in this process to completely remove out all overlaps on something that was all on one side. So before you do that, go back to mark overlaps and constant here and cancel that and get rid of that. So now we've got the overlaps thing here. And if we do a quick unwrap on this and we add that UV we just done, preview it, we'll quickly be able to see. So this poly here is missing for some reason. So that's something we'll have to get back from that mesh, because we've removed, I believe, there are all of these little knobs here, and is that area there. And we've removed all of them because they're all on the left side. So I can't see anything at first glance that what else is missing. Oh, there's this as well, but I think that's also the outside of this knob here. I think that's it. So if we just go back to this, and we basically want to keep one of these, and we'll keep the very top one here. So detach that one as any name and add it back on to this. There we go. You can weld up the verts, but it's not that critical, but it's worth doing. Just make sure you don't screw anything else up at the same time. And now if we do that same UV again, we should find that now we have faces for them. So yeah, that's back there, and that one's there as well. So that's all good. Collapse that. And is there anything else that we check it again for overlap? So do the polygon fill, but mark overlaps as white, but any normal ones that aren't are black. And there's still one overlap here. Oh, and another down here. So if we save that over the last one, and we then take the UV and open that file, let's do this part manually instead of automatically. So open this. So this face up here is overlapped, and we can see that is the two insides of here. Just I had another UV here, and that was taking up space, so I moved one of them up. So which one is not connected? If we look at the seam, that one's not connected, so we just take that one. And there was another thing over here somewhere, wasn't there? Some white line somewhere. Here it is. Don't think that's actually an error. Let's check it again. It's only that face. And I don't think there's actually any overlaps. I think that's just an error on the render front. Oh, it's probably construing this very small polygon right here as an overlap. But it's not. It's just very, very small polygon, which isn't actually overlapped. But the script is just thinking that might be. If we did it in a bigger render, it wouldn't class that as an overlap. So if we go back to just removing this face, which we should check it is just that one that's selected, not the other side. Break that, collapse. You don't necessarily need the break, but that's what I've done. And just detach that. You don't have to bother with name, because what we're going to do is go back to the overlaps, which for some reason just named R, so we'll fix that. So underscore overlaps, and then attach that object there we just added on, and there we go. That the turret is now fixed as well. Gonna just save that quickly, and moving on to the next part, which is the cannon base, which is this whole thing here. Now, first thing to do is to do a proper UV, so let's do base normals and turn off mark overlaps. So we got our reference UV to make sure we haven't taken any away. UVs, save it as cannon base. Okay. Now if we do another with mark overlaps and constant as black, we get this one, which we will save as number 2. Open that in Photoshop, and the same thing again. Select red, green, blue, hold control. That will just select it. And that selects all white pixels then. And then selection, modify, expand by 2 pixels. Fill, save, and then add the volume select. We want face, crossing, texture, and we want bitmap. No, not none, bitmap. And that texture we just done. Selects all of those overlaps again. You can see quite a bit again. Add an editable poly modifier. Get the face selection. You can see them all here. And again, is pretty much all again left to right. I think it actually on this is exact clone of left to right on everything. So let's just keep the left side and detach this as that name. Now, first, let's check we haven't. So collapse that, check we haven't. Add a UV and check it against our old one. So this one here, preview, and it looks like we got everything still there. make sure you do check everything, because it's very easy to miss something. But yeah, everything looks there. If you do a face selection, you can see more clearly. So everything is there. Collapse that. And check for overlaps one more time. We just want to make sure we didn't miss anything. And yes, we've missed something here. So save that again. And let's do this one manually. So add an unwrap, edit, pick bitmap, and this one. And it's something, oh yes, it's inside of here. I've overlapped these two sides. So that one on the left isn't actually tied. So break that, which you don't necessarily need to do, but wasn't even stitched to begin with. So it's going to just bake shadow on that side and it's going to clone it to that one. So collapse and detach that. You don't actually really want to move it either, but I have. Because if you want to add it on later, it'll be screwed up. So got all of this now as our overlaps, and finally, well, not quite finally actually, got the barrels and then we got the iron sights. But let's do the barrels next. So, and this is pretty much just the left barrel clone to the right, so it's just take this barrel out. I know that from experience of just doing it. And then check this for any overlaps. Hopefully there will be a few actually. Yes, there's just one right on the side here, which is basically all of these faces are overlapped with each other. So just going from memory of my own unwrap. These ones here, if we have a look at them, you can see it's all of these on the inside. And we only want one on one side, so I'm going to pick these ones here. Make sure I don't get anything else. Yup. Collapse and detach them. So we got these two here still, but everything else is overlapped. So overlaps. Check that for overlaps, and as we can see now, it looks fine. Just yeah. So did I delete that other gun? I think I did instead of actually removing it, which is a bad mistake. So simplest thing, clone it, both the overlaps and the thing. And if we take that, attach that overlap there, then just mirror it. Weld these just in case, and then mirror. There we go. And that's attach that to the overlaps, because they're all overlaps as well. So save, hide, and finally the iron sights. Where are they? There they are. What is that? Oh, these are the Canon overlaps, which somehow have been saved correctly. So, iron sights, which are here. I've only actually done these for first person so far. I'll make the third person ones off them later, and they're 1,000 tries for first person because I want them super detailed. So yeah, they haven't got back faces, but the back face, even on the third person model, would just be a clone of the front, and they don't need the back ones on the first person. So, check for overlaps first, shall we? And yes, there are a few, couple down here and here, and we'll do them manually. So, first we should just make sure we get our reference UV, just to make sure we don't remove anything accidentally. So, just call these irons, save, Then do the overlaps, and then save that. Where is it? Yeah. So let's do this one manually because there isn't much there. So it's really just mainly this area here. So these two, go to face selection, sorry, and this. Should probably actually do this one in a much higher resolution because they're so thin lines, some of these parts. So higher resolution, save it over the top of the old one. And if we just reload it, there we go. We can see that actually it's this one here as well. And these top bits here aren't actually overlapped because after here it's not overlapped. Because if you look there, those are all unique. They're not overlapped, but under it is overlapped somewhere. So it's under that part there gets overlapped. So right under there, which is basically the start of this. But for some reason they're not 100% meeting up, but not to worry. So I want to get it up to here, but remove that bit there. And that one starts. Yeah. Then this is all overlapped here, as are these. And is there anything else? Oh yeah, these are overlapped as well. And I think that's it. Thinks that's an overlap, but it's not. Probably just a small pixel. Small edge, sorry. That possibly from that. And collapse this. So firstly, on here, that is just an overlap of that side, and these all overlap left to right, other than these two, which is top and bottom overlapped. So let's remove that, and let's remove the right hand side of this. No, left hand side, sorry. No, it was right, because this is backwards, isn't it? Just thinking about where I was when I was UVing them, how I UV'd them for the best result on. We want to keep the front, not the back. So there we go. And then detach all of the selected off into the overlaps. Yeah. And then, yeah, check that again for, and there are still one overlap here for some reason. See what we missed. So if we go back into UV, add it back in, view it. One again here I missed. Oh yes, these two here, the same. We will take the very outside one off and attach that one. So collapse, take, detach, add it onto the overlaps. And there we go. Just check it one more time. and it's all clear. Other than those two dots down there, which are most likely, which are pretty up, they are errors. So save that, and let's unhide all of these plus that. And there we go. So if we have a look at all of our overlaps, you will see that all of them are overlaps. And if we do Control I for invert, those are the actual meshes we want to bake. That, yeah, because that front does have its own fake CBR. I remember doing that. So now you've got that, you'll want to do your baking. Now, the best thing to do is really bake piece by piece, I find, because you have much more flexibility in Photoshop. So the first thing you want to do is add a skylight to your scene. So go Create tab, go to Lights here, and add skylight. Just plonk it in anywhere, and go to the settings. Make sure it's slightly blue. You want to drag that down so it's absolutely white. Otherwise, you can get a slight blue tint to your thing, and that will affect your light color slightly. So there's our skylight. We can move it wherever we like. Put it a bit closer, but it really doesn't matter where it is in the scene, to be honest. It has the same lighting effect wherever it is. Next, let's go to the render settings. And advanced lighting, we want light tracer on, active skylight is 1, and all the rest. Renderer, we want to enable global sampler and have 2.5 max star. And that's pretty much it. So if we save that, so let's first start off on the legs. Make sure you've actually got the legs and not the overlaps, which are, where are they? Can't find them now. There they are. There's the overlaps. And those are the ones we actually want to wake. So, first thing we want to do is change the path, if you haven't already, to the bake folder. I think I've got some really old bakes in there actually from my attempt at baking this before I fixed it up to give it a UV. So it's in there. Just check that folder. Yeah, just remove these because they're useless, redundant, and buggy. So padding, I'd advise you to have about 8, maybe a little bit more. Just helps with UV. We don't want a projection map because we are just doing a low poly bake model. That's the projection if you're doing a high poly to low poly bake, but we're only doing a low poly straight. Ray miss check, you ideally want that off because that can create some errors, and you only want that on really if you're debugging your mesh. And add lighting map. Lighting map is different from diffuse because it only takes on lighting. Now for this, while the end texture for this is probably going to be 1024 by 1024, I always like to render my bakes in a much higher resolution and then downsize them later because the final quality is far much better. Far less errors, and yeah, the extra time is worth it. Save the format. I would recommend PNG, but on top of that, let's copy that MAME, save it, save your file, and then add alpha channel. It'll make it so much easier when working in Photoshop if you don't have the areas. And if you do for a lighting map, anything that's not got a mesh on it will be pitch black. And that will be a pitch black shadow, and that, even if it's in just areas that don't have any mesh, it does affect the pixel bleeding and the bitmaps quite a bit if the area surrounding each face is black, and it's just really bad. So have the alpha map on so you don't have areas around the face being made just fully black. Then if we hit render, we get the rendering. is giving the checker texture because that's just the UV checker texture that I've got, and you can see some shadowing on here. But and if I turn the texture on, you can see. But here's the basic shadow. You can see it's added it. You can see some shadow on the legs here, and so on. So, and if we take a look at that, that is the texture there. And if we open it in Photoshop, you can see, there we go. There's a little foot there. So that's the first bake we've done. The next one is the base. So it's this. Make sure you got the bake and not the overlap, which is this one over here. And it's the same story again. So take this. You don't need to bother with these, but you do need to put the padding up to 8 again. You actually do need to take it off each time. And add lighting map 2048, and it will use the same file format as you last used, other than if you restart Max, and then it will go back to the default TGA. So check that each time, and then render. Drag that back. And this mesh is a bit more complicated than the base, so it will take a little bit more time. And now that's done, let's take a look. All looks good. Even this little duck here is looking good, which is actually a handbrake, but it just looks like a duck. And yep. Let's check the actual file itself. Looks good. Open it with Photoshop just to get a better preview. And all looks good. So next is the barrel base. Now, there is a slight problem with this because if we bake it at this angle, then it will get only shadows for this, and when you actually rotate it up, you won't get the shadows for different lightings. So what I'm going to try is something I haven't actually tried before, and that is to do lots of different bakes at different angles. So I have no idea if this is actually going to work or not. I've never seen anybody do it, but I am basically going to do the full rotation of what this can do with a render at each increment of something like say 20. I'm not sure yet, but it's minimum it can aim down to is -5 degrees, which is that. We also want to attach, the overlap. We want to hook that on to the barrel, the cannon base, so it rotates down with it, like so, or up. So let's do -5, add a, let's do auto key there, set key, then at 100. Top is actually 83.5, but we'll do 80. There we go, and then this mag, actually I should probably do this. Oh, and we've got these overlaps here, of course. So move that up, and we attach these overlaps here onto the barrels. It's probably a good idea to do this actually for everything. So take each overlap, put them on what they are. So the base, the iron sights, and the turret to the turret. So then when one of them moves, like the turret, for example, when it rotates round, everything rotates round with it, and so on. So let's just save that quickly. And right, so what I should really do is add a skin modifier onto this, because that's how it's going to be in game. So it needs to flex as it does in game. So the shadows are correct. So unhide these bones, and I'll just clone them to put them on here. So bone 3 goes onto the turret, and bone 4 goes onto cannon base, if I remember right. Yeah. And then add bone 3 and 4. And then edit envelopes. 4 needs to be basically all, but these very bottom verts. Oh yeah, vertices. There we go. And then effect 1, invert selection, and there. Yeah. So then when we rotate this upwards, the thing will stretch as it does in game, which is a bit odd, but it's the best we can do with the BF2 engine with a bundled mesh. So let's do the same here. Skin, add bone 3 and bone 4, and then edit envelopes, vertices, all but those 4, and that wants to be affected by 1, and then the other bone will be just them. So yeah, all good, and then hopefully it should also stretch on this side now, which it does, which is good. So save that. You'd probably want to skip that whole bit there, unless it affects you at all. But now, so auto hotkey, we do it start from -5, sorry, and then to 100, we'll take it to 83.5, which is its max, and then we got the full range with the thing flexing. And as you see here, actually, we might want to do it again on the main mesh because we got a shadow here from the ammo belts. So let's start at 0 and then put a padding of 8, turn off ray check, add lighting map. Now, I don't know if there's, that's automatic mapping tab. I don't know if there's anything in here which would allow us, 2048 texture, to do each frame render separately, which I doubt. I can't see anything and I'm not aware of anything. Doubt it's in here. Ooh, we might be able to do active time segment. See if that works. That might work or it might not. Let's do every 10 frames because we don't want to. That would give us 10 renders if it works. So let's try that. Save that first, and let's try it with 1 to 8 just to make sure it works. So yes, if we look here, it is actually rendering every frame now, as I hoped. And if we look in our bakes, not sure what that's doing there. Right, it's probably the other bake, but saved in wrong file for some reason. No idea why it's IFL, whatever that is. Yeah, we'll have to redo that one. Oh no, that's probably, yeah, sorry, that's the animation thing, but if we look, the lighting changes between each one as we want. Then we can combine them later in Photoshop. So let's do that on full 2048, and this might take a little time because we've got to do till hole renders. Just delete them, and we delete this one as well, and render away. No. Sorry, wrong render button almost. It's this render button here. And then here we go. Now that's done, we should probably actually do the same for the base here. So even though it's unlinked, oh, and you can see, not sure what that shadow is, probably the blending thing, but yep. So we should do the same for this base here. So if we render that, we'll now get 10 renders of the base, which will take a bit. Now that's done, let's have a look at the bakes folder. And yes, we can see slowly the shadow moves. Although there, it's probably a clip through the ammo belt or something, clipping through or something. I'm not sure. Down here where it suddenly, we'll fix that manually if we need to. But other than that, looks good. And if we look at this, all looks good. Now, finally, let's do. Let's put it on 10, which is pretty much level. And let's do a single render for the barrels. So render this. First we want to put the padding back up to 8, want to turn ray mischeck off, add the lighting map, PNG 2048, and render. We don't need to bother with doing the different rotations because it's not affected at all by the different rotations, if that makes sense, because there's nothing around it from that changes due to, because if we have a quick look at different rotations, everything around it stays the same pretty much. Nothing's going to really affect it. So there we go. Looks good. And finally, the iron sights here. So again, put the padding up to 8, turn ray mischeck off, add a lighting map, PNG 2048, and render single frame again, because this, while it does rotate up and down like so, again, nothing is really going to affect it other than the sides. This is going to affect the sides very slightly, but nothing we really need to worry about. So render, and there we go. All done. See there, that looks good. Oh, looks good. So now it's really just a matter of combining all of these renders. So let's save this quickly. And so close all. Let's go File, Scripts, no, Automate. Or is it in Scripts? I think it's actually in Scripts. Yeah, load files into stack. Browse. Get out of there. Weapons, RH202. Bakes. Now let's load all of these in. Actually, let's first just do these cannons. All of these different ones. And this script basically just loads in every single layer. Every single file into its own layer in the same image. Which is nice and handy. It's far faster than doing it yourself. But it does take a little bit of time, but there we go, I think it's done. And the layers. So we got 10 total. Now, this is my first time doing it this way. But let's just check each one to make sure there's no errors we need to manually fix up, which I think there is somewhere down here on one, we remember. Or maybe that's a different one. That all looks good there. Let's have a look at the whole thing. So, loading each one up. Now, basically, because we have 10 files, I'd imagine we put the capacity at 10%, and then copy layout style, paste it over all of these. Then we also put them all at multiply, I'd imagine. No. Overlay maybe? No. I'm not entirely sure how we do this one. Maybe if we put them all on overlay. No. Multiply. Nope. Possibly have this at 100%. And these all at. No. Actually, if we put a white background on, how does that look? And we put these all on multiply, I'd imagine. If we just duplicate this top one, turn it onto 100, see how that compares. It's not quite the same, is it? Let's try overlay. Nope. Because that we hope to have fully black, like so, because in each one that area around there is. What if we invert this? Nope. Well, if we change them all to overlay. Nope. So yeah, this, I'll just remind you, is my first time doing it this way, so I am not 100% sure, and I'm sort of making it up as I go along. Just to be clear. Let's just try different approaches, so see if any of them work. Nope, multiply seems the best one. We can try. Try 25% for each one, but that's too much. 20, 15. Possibly 25% is what we need. Almost. That's almost black there. and slowly, and that is white there. It's not quite what we want there, is it? It's pretty much there though, I think. Hmm. It isn't actually as clear cut. No, actually, it's about right. We might go with that. So yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Is have them all at 25% at opacity with a white background, and then you want to select them and basically invert that, delete the area outside it, and then just merge all these layers into one. And there we go. That's our combined light map. Not light map, opacity map, sorry. Ambient Occlusion, sorry. Not really thinking straight here. And yes, that's pretty good. Now, the next thing is to do that for the others, so load files into stack browse, and let's do it for all of these turrets. Okay. Wait a second while that works. You can see the shadow here changing between each one. If you wanted to get a really, really smooth shadow, you'd do it for 100 frames instead of just 10, but yeah, it doesn't really make that much difference, to be honest. So, same thing again, make a layer, put it at the very back, make it white, change these all to 25% and multiply. And that should be pretty much the same as taking that to 100% and putting that on normal. Actually, it's not, is it? Let's try putting all of these on normal at 25%. That might work better. For some reason my scroll isn't working there anymore. Yes, that's the answer there. So you want normal instead of multiply. So let's go back to this one, and before we merge the layers, let's change these all to normal. Yeah, that looks better. So, and then merge these layers, and then same. So select these layers, merge layers into one. Oh, sorry. We want to first invert that selection, delete the area outside, merge these layers. Yeah, pretty much the same, other than with this single one. I mean, this is the biggest area you can see. We don't have a smooth shadow, but here we have a much smoother transition. So here, where the gun mostly is, you get much bigger shadow, and with permanent shadow, you got really solid shadows here, which is what we want. Which, unlike here, and overall, you actually get a lot smoother shadow, because here there's a few little pixels, or whatever, little splodges of blackness, where here it's much smoother. I mean, here where the static shadow is, especially, you can see the difference. And on the edges here, it's much rounder. So that's all good. And I think that's the only two we did that with. Yep. So if we scripts, load files and stack, just get the others in here. So it's free for the barrel, the iron sights, and the very base legs. Put them all in. And then if we merge this into Untitled 3, which is this one here, which we just made, call it that, and let's do the same here again with that, put it in Entitled 3, and then all together, that's what it looks like. Now, duplicate these layers and then merge these layers and call them a combined AO bake, and turn off all of these layers here. I'd normally put them in the folder, but I can't be asked. And what we want to do is take this selection, let's duplicate this just as a backup, hide it. Now, because we got all of this, here's a good example. This area here, where it's all stretched pixels, this is the padding area. So all of that is padding, all of that is padding, and that goes for 8 pixels if you remember we said it. So there we go. That's the padding there, that's 8 pixels long, as you can see there, and that's padding from that edge stretched out into it. That's all well and good, but for the best results we want to take these edges. So if we select inverse, go refine edge, go B, and then let's shift edge open, feather it a little to about a pixel. In this case that works well, maybe 2 pixels just to... And then if we delete that, we get a much better result, because at the very edge of some of them, if we go and find it, we can probably find a few errors here and there, though generally this looks very good. Normally you get much bigger errors on the edges. Just see if I can find any, probably on the barrel or something. No, it's actually looks good. Sometimes you get black edges on the end of the padding, but not in this case. But anyway, I'll still recommend you do this little step. So just delete that. And then if you duplicate that layer, call it AO background blur, BGB for short, and then image canvas size 4096 by 4096, and this is basically where I'm doing my own style padding. So you only do this part when you've got all your layers there and anywhere in the middle is just alpha, and then you just want to blur it, use the blur tool, massive size, 100% strength and all the rest, and you're just blurring the background layer. Make sure you've also got all samples on up here. Where is my thing? Just working a second while I blur all that. And this will basically take the layer above it, which is the combined AO bake, and this layer we got, which is the AO background blur, and we're blurring it together to form, anywhere outside it, a padding area of blurred between all of the faces. And basically you get a much better end result, which works a lot better with the bitmaps and pixel bleeding. So when you're far away from the texture, you don't suddenly see massive black edges around the UV seams which you see on a lot. So if we go in, you see now it's blurred slightly. If we undo it, you can see there, sort of taken the pixel, the padding, and extended it, and then combined it with stuff around it. So you see here where we got this. Let's see, it sort of neutralizes the color in the middle, and this is what you want. So if we do it again, second time around, it gets much better. Now we can see a slight error up here on the render, which I missed. This is what I was on about earlier. But I just wait for this to work. Let it work. There we go. So if we zoom in here, you can see slight errors on the edge where it thinks it's white. We can fix that later with and same again here. This is what we mostly removed from doing that delete, but of the, what do you call it? The narrowed selection. So just keep doing this till you're happy you've got enough padding. Doesn't need to be full, just needs to be enough to satisfy you. And you can see down here as well, that looks like a bit of an error as well. And just wait for it to work. So yeah, a little bit of an error, nothing massive there. Now, reason why you expand the canvas to 4096 is if it gets to the edge, it can make let's do a bit more. It can change the color to like red tinge and green tinges and all sorts. It probably has done a little bit already, even though we haven't gone to the edge. And it also gets really black at the edges and things like that. If it gets to the edge of the canvas, it sort of blurs it from the other side of the canvas and something like that. And it just gets all awful. So expand the canvas before you do this blurring. It is important. Then, once you're happy with it, just collapse the canvas size back to 2048 once it's finished this. Taking its time. And this technique is also very good on all sorts of maps. So I use it on normal maps, diffuse maps, and everything. And it really helps with cutting down on pixel bleeding, and more importantly, the mip maps where each mip map's getting smaller and smaller resolution texture sheet basically, and the errors become more and more abundant. So yeah, proceed to 2048 collapse, and then we go. That's our AO, but with all of the gaps filled. And now on top of this, if you wanted to, you could create a new layer. If we just bring that up, you see that's without. But if we take this, make a new layer, and just get the brush out, just paint a little bit, put it on 100% opacity. Sorry, just paint these out. Probably actually use the clone stamp tool a bit smaller. And yeah, it's fine. Just helps a little. Nothing special. Just look around for anything else. There's something down here wasn't there. There it is. That's the sort of thing we want on there. Oops, right off. There we go. Not quite again. And yeah. But yeah, so you can mess around with fixing this up for ages. But that's all I'm going to do for this. Then save this up. Let's make a new textures folder. And just call this for now combine. Yeah. And finally, if we just save this out as a PNG as well, just to make it easier for Max to load. Max can load PSD files, but it's easier for it to load that. Let's hide our baking mesh, unhide this one, just hide the bones because they look bad. Now if we take a new texture, let's use this one here. Maps, diffuse, bitmap. Let's go into textures. There we go, and apply it to all of this here. You'll now see our combined AO map. As you can see, looks pretty good. The real test now is seeing if this new method has worked. And you can see it not 100%. If we go all the way up to 80%, 80 degrees, sorry, we can see this little area here. We could manually paint this shadow off, ideally, I think, just to make sure it's not there. But you can see each render has done its job, and it is much smoother than it was. And same up here again, we would probably want to paint this out a bit manually afterwards. But yeah, for the most part, it's looking really good. And you could also, round here where we got this shadow, also either manually fix it also, or do the animated render of lots of frames and combining them up. So that's the basic AO tool. Now, if we also just added a green base, so let's make two folders. Just call this one, make it yellow, AO call it multiply, shove all of our AO stuff in here. Then if we just make a quick diffuse layer, make it green, just fill that. So that's rubbish green, that. Get something a bit more, a little bit better. Still rubbish. But, yeah, still not happy with it. Let's go there. Yeah, that's a bit better. So if we save this now on the PNG, this is sort of thing it would have on a basic green texture while it loads. Still saving the damn map. There we go. And that's the little effect we got from my AO. So, all good. I hope this tutorial's been good for you, and you've learned something from it. Also, if we take out this one which we've animated, just set and just shove the same thing on there, we can see the stretching and work. So there we go. We got this stretched face now, and you can see the shadow we'd need to clean up a bit because it's still rather shadowy down here where we'd want it less shadowy for when it's fully stretched out. Even if when you're looking into the box it's a bit light, just for it being seen more when it's fully stretched. But there we go. I hope you found this tutorial useful, and hope I haven't blathered on too much. So yeah, cheers for watching, and good luck with your AO mapping and all the rest of it. Cheers.